Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to the first episode of Front Page International. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. I'm happy to announce that Front Page International is officially up. We've had so much feedback from our audience asking us to cover news around the world, so we'll be bringing you international truth every week. In today's episode, while the UK is lifting the COVID restrictions and people are regaining their freedom, Cubans are fighting for their autonomy. Communist China has never stopped growing its ambitions. They're developing new weapons that can interfere, jam, and destroy satellites. So what will they use them for? Amazon was approved to develop a radar sensor which can 3D scan your body while you sleep. Finally, a touching story that will warm your heart. More than 1,500 letters written by a young soldier to his wife during World War II have been unearthed after being hidden away for over 70 years. Okay, let's get into it. People are starting to breathe with a sigh of relief as COVID-19 restrictions and lockdowns are being lifted around the world. All legal restrictions in the UK related to COVID-19, except for self-isolation, will end as of July 19th. Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced that mask mandates, social distancing, and the restriction on the number of people gathering will finally be lifted. Those rules will instead be replaced with guidance, which people are advised to follow. The government will also no longer instruct people to work from home if they can, although ministers are recommending employers oversee a gradual return to workplaces for their employees this summer. Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Saeed Javid, described it as a major milestone. In anticipation, English soccer fans couldn't wait for the July 19th date. The Wembley Stadium was filled with fans on July 11th for the 2021 Euro Cup finals. Italy went on to win in penalty shots after a 1-1 tie couldn't be broken in extra time. While England may not have been happy with the results, they should be happy that not a single case of COVID happened from the game. The fans in the packed stadium had no masks and definitely were not social distancing. This may have boosted the UK's confidence in lifting the restrictions. I hope we'll see more restrictions lifted in other places too. Besides Brits regaining freedom, a new survey shows that they also dislike companies that preach to them about social issues. The survey was conducted by the Center for Policy Studies and political language and communications expert Dr. Frank Luntz. They found that the majority of people, especially those who identify as conservatives, say that the job of companies is to create jobs for people and not to preach their ideology. Only 9% said they want companies to speak out about social issues. In trying to understand the psyche of the British people, Dr. Luntz found two key points. 63% who were surveyed said they consider England to be a nation of equality and freedom, as opposed to seeing it as an institutionally racist and discriminatory country, which is the key view of those who identify as being woke. The Center for Policy Studies tweeted, "Divisions in Britain go beyond right or left, leave or remain. 40% of voters say rich versus poor is the biggest divide in society. Being a free and equal society is something all nations around the world should aspire to be. However, communist dictators have a different interpretation of what free and equal is." Thousands of Cubans marched through Havana and other cities demanding an end to communist rule on July 11th. Pictures and video clips of the protests have spread online before Cuban authorities shut down internet services in an attempt to control information. This is the biggest protest Cuba has seen since the communist regime took control in 1959. On the surface, it seems like it's about scarcity of goods. Since the pandemic began, Cuba is experiencing its worst economic crisis due to its dependence on tourism. Cubans have become accustomed to waiting in line for hours to buy basic goods like chicken and detergent. Pharmacy shelves are almost totally bare. But the reality is that Cubans have had enough of communist rule. People were chanting freedom and down with communism while marching on the streets. It's interesting to see that Cubans were using the U.S. flag to express their yearning for freedom, while leftists in America call the flag divisive. Protesters and police had fierce confrontations with police pepper spraying and beating protesters. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel didn't call for peace. Instead, he called on communist members to fight protesters on the streets. It's no surprise that violence is the communists' approach to solve problems. We did an in-depth episode on Cuba on our front page channel. We went into why the mainstream media didn't utter a single word about the real cause of the Cuban people's anger. I've left the link in the description below. South Africa is also in chaos. Rioting and looting in the country continued on Wednesday, with the death toll rising to 72. The violence appeared to have been sparked by former President Jacob Zuma's arrest for being in contempt of court. That later turned into looting and rioting. Video footage showed rioters blocking traffic and setting vehicles and buildings on fire. Local authorities said that the deaths occurred mainly during stampedes. Military and police are struggling to deal with the violence. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said he would be deploying the country's military to restore order following the days of violence. I want to point out that the current president and his political party are strong supporters of the CCP. We'll be talking more about this in future episodes, and we'll keep you posted on the situation. On the other side of the globe, Communist China is growing its ambition to replace the U.S. as the dominant space force. The Pentagon says the regime is making big and long-term investment to narrow the gap in space technology with the U.S. Director of Intelligence of the United States Indo-Pacific Command, Michael Studman, said that China is pushing to develop anti-satellite weapons, which can interfere, jam, and destroy satellites in space. He said that the regime's goal is to equal and exceed American space capabilities if they are ever in a fight. It's not the first time the U.S. noticed Chinese space threats. In 2019, the Defense Intelligence Agency warned that Communist China was developing military and commercial communications. About 30 such satellites were in operation. The Trump administration then established a military branch called the Space Force to counter the threat. In April, the Director of National Intelligence predicted that the Chinese military will continue to integrate space services into weapons and systems. As Beijing continues to develop such weapons, are they planning to use them at some point? Earlier this month, Chinese leader Xi Jinping pledged to take over Taiwan. Xi vowed to smash all of Taiwan's attempts to become an independent country. He called the process a peaceful reunification. Taiwan reported that Chinese fighter jets are entering their airspace daily. There are also sightings of a Chinese warship crossing over the median line of the Taiwan Strait and entering Taiwan waters. The U.S. drew a line down the middle of the strait when it signed a treaty with Taiwan decades ago. The strait separates democratic Taiwan from communist China and serves as a buffer zone for both sides. However, the Chinese regime insists on Taiwan and its surrounding waters being part of its territory, despite the fact that Taiwan has its own currency, government, and military. Last Sunday, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeted that people don't want to live in a world dominated by the CCP. He told Fox News that Xi Jinping was threatening the people of Taiwan, and it requires resolve, strength, and deterrence from America. Pompeo hopes that Biden will do the right thing. Another touchy CCP topic is Hong Kong. A group of 21 governments have issued a joint statement expressing concern about press freedom in Hong Kong. What they refer to is the recent forced closure of Apple Daily, a major pro-democracy newspaper in Hong Kong, and the arrest of the paper's staff. Under the national security law, freedoms in the once vibrant financial hub have been disappearing at an alarming rate. Dozens of city pro-democracy opposition leaders are now either facing prosecution or sitting in jail if they haven't already fled overseas as political refugees. Apple Daily was forced to shut down on June 17th. Two of the paper's senior executives are in detention. 2 writers were arrested, and its founder, Jimmy Lai, has been serving prison terms on charges related to his support of Hong Kong's mass protest 2 years ago. Following the closure of Apple Daily, several local media took action to self-censor, including deleting published videos and commentary articles. The Hong Kong Journalist Association said, "White terror is everywhere." The group of governments said they were highly concerned about the possibility of the media's scrutiny and criticism of government policies and actions being eliminated. They called on the Chinese regime and the Hong Kong government to uphold press freedom in line with China's international legal obligations. The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, on July 9th approved Amazon's request for a waiver for a radar sensor. Similar to Google's Solly radar, Amazon's radar sensor would be used in remote sleep tracking devices. Unlike wearable devices like the Apple Watch or Fitbit, its radar sensor can 3D scan your body from a distance. The company claimed that the technology could improve awareness and management of sleep hygiene, which in turn could produce significant health benefits. However, due to the body diagnostic abilities such as body fat and voice tone detection, users' privacy is of high concern. Earlier this month, the company's founder Jeff Bezos officially announced he was handing over the CEO reins. Bezos explained that he planned to step back from the company's day-to-day business and will focus on new products and early initiatives. 3D radar scan is clearly one of them. While more new technology will be popping up in the future, these technologies cannot replace real relationships among people. An incredible collection of more than 1,500 letters, cards, and telegrams written by a young soldier to his wife during World War II have been unearthed after being hidden away for over 70 years. Lieutenant David Dawson wrote to his wife, Blanche, between 1939 and 1945. David, who was a lieutenant in the Royal Army Pay Corps, was stationed in London, Scotland, the Netherlands, France, and Germany. The soldier wrote to his wife with impressive regularity, and the heartfelt notes were raw in emotion. The prevailing theme of the letters was his love for his hometown Scarborough and his longing to come home. Ruth Walker, who's a family friend of the Dawsons, said her family has been taking care of the letters for some years now. David and Blanche were good friends with her grandparents, and her mother was the executor of the Dawsons' will. Ruth will be donating the letters to the Scarborough Museum's Trust. The Trust's collection manager, Jim Middleton, says, "This amazing collection of wartime letters offers a rare personal insight into the everyday plight of ordinary people during extraordinary times." So often collections like these are lost over the years as people pass away. So for such a complete record to be saved for the town is fantastic, both for local historians and future generations. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with at least one of your friends, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for tuning in and watching the first episode of Front Page International. We will see you next time.